The new moon of December 23, 2022 is right in between the solstice, the winter solstice, and Christmas Eve. So it's a great period of time with lots of festivities, lots of celebrations happening. And what is really interesting, if we look at the aspects, astrological aspect, is a square between Jupiter and Aries at 0 degree and the luminaries, so sun and moon in conjunction. Anytime you have a new moon, you always have sun and moon in conjunction. So both together at the very beginning at 1 degree in Capricorn, they are forming a really precise square with Jupiter in Aries. So Jupiter in Aries, sun and moon in Capricorn, square strong. That was on already between the sun and Jupiter on the winter solstice, and it will also be there again, still there, on Christmas Eve. So this is the main aspect, really. There are a few others, but we won't even talk about them because the main one from far, the strongest one that is there for all three events, winter solstice, new moon of December 23, and Christmas Eve, is this square of Jupiter with the luminaries, with the sun mainly. So what does that mean? What's the meaning behind this square? That's the topic today. So let's have a look at first the sun entering the sign of Capricorn. Since the new moon is so close to this winter solstice, which is in astrology the entrance of the sun in Capricorn, it's the same thing, winter solstice and the sun entering Capricorn. So since it's so close, the new moon and this happening, this winter solstice, there's a specific meaning this time to this work in Capricorn, which is in a very simple way, how do we dive within? How do we actually go within ourselves and open up a little bit the gifts that are within? How do we listen to this inner voice within ourselves? This voice of intuition, or it could also be the voice of our guides. Very, very often, to connect with our guides, we go through our solar plexus, our hara center, our heart. Very often, it connects through this whole body, through our whole being. It's not just in our mind. And this, because winter solstice, the days are shorter. There's less light and the daytime is shorter in the northern hemisphere, of course, but since there are about 90% of humanity on the northern hemisphere of our beautiful planet, well then it's for most people, that's exactly like that. Days are shorter at the winter solstice, and it's a time to go within. It really is. And Christmas, if we think about it, well, it's the birth of Jesus. So the birth of Jesus, think about it, it comes from the womb. And this is all the same type of energy centers. Hara center, solar plexus, connected to the heart as well. So it's all this area within ourselves. We have to dive within and listen to our guides there, those precious intuition forces that are within. So this is all this Capricorn energy, winter solstice, new moon, sun and moon entering Capricorn, and same thing for Christmas Eve. It really is that energy. Think about when you're listening to Christmas carols. A part of this is joyful for sure, but really, it really is about going within, listening to the Christmas carol, but in a way that really does touch us somehow in ourselves. So we have this point in the square, sun and moon. The other one is Jupiter and Aries, totally different. Aries is a real active, very dynamic, enthusiastic force that moves things. And Jupiter is the energy, the planet that helps us to manage things. Management, how to take good decisions, the good decisions, because it's a good planet. You know, Jupiter, it's all about this generosity. It's a good energy. So this Jupiter in Aries, we can imagine some kind of intelligence that, and it's ourselves basically, but we're very often helped by some, let's say, ideally they would be luminous beings that kind of enter our mind, into our brain, into our head, and you know that Aries is connected to, as a part of our body, to the head. Well, it's like this intelligence that goes in our head and helps us to manage things. And there's so many things to manage, right? We're always managing things. Could be our work, could be just organizing, for example, around Christmas, organizing all the different celebrations, the timing of all those things, the gifts we want to prepare, all the different things going on around Christmas. But not only that, our financial situation, we have to manage it. Our relationship situations, we have to manage this as well. So we're always managing stuff in our mind almost all the time. Some people are even having a hard time sleeping because that never stops turning for them. This Jupiter in Aries symbolically, even if you don't have in your birth chart Jupiter in Aries, we all know Jupiter in Aries. You don't have to always, stay at looking at your birth chart. It's just energy that is there. We all know it. It's been there. It's moving all around all the time, Jupiter, every 12 years. It's having some time in the sign of Aries. So this energy is this management force going in this dynamic head that wants to manage pretty much everything. So this is really different than what we just named before, which is diving within to listen to, let's say, our guides, this intuition voice. Very different. Sometime you'll say, yes, but when I'm trying to manage my life, I'm also trying to listen to what is best, so I'm trying to connect with my intuition as well. I understand, but it's not the same. That only means that the intelligence that you invite to manage the things in your head, you try to have the best possible energy and making it as intuitive as possible, which is great. That's wonderful. But that being said, it remains management energy in our head. It's not diving within in those, let's say, deeper energy centers. Of course, in our head, we have wonderful energy centers, right? We have the seventh chakra, wonderful. The third eye, we have lots of wonderful things. That being said, they are not that developed. In our mental plane as humanity, our intellectual aspect, our intelligence from the mind is not that strong either. It's okay, like we can do great things with technology, but we cannot use it, for example, to connect with extraordinary spiritual beings that could explain us things that we never even thought about. Our mind, our intellectual part of the human being right now is not developed enough to really be able to do that. Usually, people that can connect with luminous beings, let's say, they go through those spiritual centers that are more Hara center, solar plexus is a big one, or the heart. Very, very often it goes through those centers most of the time. So I'm just outlining this so we really see and we draw the difference between trying to manage things in our life with more intuition, which is great, but we remain in our mind, in our head, and diving within and really listening to our guides and receiving the gifts. It's two totally different energies. I'll give an example of that. Let's say someone wants to meditate. For some people, meditation is not that easy because somehow they remain in their mind and they keep thinking with their mind. They remain in this part of themselves and they don't know so much anymore how to dive within and go listening to all those great secrets that are given from our guides, from, let's say, our guardian angels, or whoever you you feel that is working with you. Well, there are gifts that are given so often, but for some people, it's very rare that it'll really go within, stop this mind, and just go within. It's two different things, totally different. The square is about those two things. And it's a classic. Let's say in Christmas Eve time, well, very often we say, oh, Christmas Eve is sacred. In the meantime, most people really don't have so much of a sacred time. Like they'll be celebrating, often there'll be alcohol and all this stuff, and basically a connection within, really? Well, sometime a little bit, but it's not like the greatest meditation of the year, let's say, for most people. Not everybody, of course. But it's kind of the usual way of doing things in some part of the world. So that's why it's kind of a classic, but this time the astrological forces are showing us exactly that. And since they're doing this, and there's another reason for what I'm gonna say really soon. I'm just gonna say that other reason. You know, with this COVID situation, depending where you live, in some places, those last Christmases have been different. Sometimes, you know, people did celebrate Christmas with a mask or not even celebrating it at all, or just through Skype or Zoom or whatever else. You see, that happened. And whenever something like that happens, it allows us to rethink Christmas and rethink those gatherings, and something starts changing. Whenever we do something that changes the whole situation that used to be very stable, always the same, well, something started to change. We noticed, it doesn't have to be always the same. So there's some kind of an opening there, and whenever you have an opening like this, there will be evolution. So that evolution, this square is telling us to use it well. And what does it mean? It means, that's the big point, we have to take responsibility upon this need of diving within from time to time. It's just like an email box. You receive your emails, you go in your inbox, and you open them. We receive those within. We have to go there, open the box, and read it, receive the gifts. Christmas gifts, the image also come from that, and in a more subtle way. This is very important, and we have to be responsible for it. That square is telling us exactly that. We feel, oh, there's something's not right, or there's something more to this situation. And sometimes we have those feelings, really deep feelings. We feel something strong. We don't know exactly what it is. It's not clear yet. Well, that's what Jupiter is telling us. We take a break and we ask to this Jupiter in our mind that I described before, this energy there, we ask from this energy to, if it's a luminous one, we can stick with it and ask to this energy to just accompany us and dive within, and we can go and open those gifts in our subtle centers of Hara Center, solar plexus, and all this. And if you're not comfortable with those centers, just think about going within. It's enough. You don't have to know those words, know what they mean, work with those subtle energy centers of the body. You don't have to know all this, not at all. But just think that, oh, I have to go within. You can let this management area of our being, let's say our mind, our head, leave it for a while. Just say, it's fine. We will survive. I can take a break. I can take some time and just go within. If the management energy you're using usually is not very luminous, let's say you're stressed out, you have big financial problems, and you're just trying to survive out there, and what you're using on your daily life is not so much luminous, well then it's a moment to say, I disconnect from that and I just give this a stop and I just want to go in myself without this energy. Why do I describe two different ways of doing this, of living this new moon of December 23? Because it all depends on how are we used to work with our Jupiter, with this management energy. Did we allow this management energy to become luminous, to be connected with, light, let's say? And if we did that, then this management energy is wonderful. It's just a matter of allowing this management force, this Jupiter within ourselves, to go within instead of always being stuck in our mind. And it could be for really good things, right? Myself, for example, I work a lot with bees and apitherapy and environment and all this. There are causes out there I'm focused on. I work a lot for those causes. Well, from time to time, when I'm doing this, I'm still in my mind, in my head, even if it's great causes. But from time to time, I have to go within, open this inbox. And right now, this square is telling us we have to become responsible of those moments when we dive within. So that's the big point of this new moon, of this winter solstice, of this Christmas Eve. We are actually responsible. Sometimes we think, oh, well, I just go with the flow. And sometimes I have great inspirations, sometimes I don't. Well, now this Jupiter is telling us at this winter solstice, is telling us, it's time to become responsible of those moments. If we feel probably I have some messages inside within myself, I have to go within and open up those messages. Well, we can be responsible for that. Not only going with the flow. It's good because it's not strict, but it's a matter of becoming responsible. Some people, they have a very tight schedule. They will either pray or meditate at very precise moments because it's supposed to be the best moment and all this. It's okay, but you're not responsible. You're giving the responsibility to that rhythm. So you're not really responsible. And usually what that does is not every meditation, not every prayer will be alive the same. It's good to have a rhythm. I'm not saying it's not a good thing. I'm just saying it's a different thing to become truly responsible and to understand that yes, they are beings of light that want to connect with us. From time to time, we have to go open their messages. We won't do that in our mind. For the moment, our head, our mind is not prepared to do it. We're not able to do that. We have to go through other energy centers to dive within. Okay, I'll give another example. One last one. It's about sometimes in my videos, I do repeat myself quite a bit. So the same words would come out, about the same words. Of course, the energy is not always the same, but then there's a special meaning for this. I'm not repeating myself because I think, oh, people are not intelligent enough to understand. Of course not. If they wouldn't be, they just have to, listen the same information again, and it will eventually, they will get it. This is not the point at all. The real point is when I'm repeating a certain notion, it's because We have to do this. Disconnect from the mind that try to manage, understand astrologically what it means, understanding the mind, the brain, the intellect. Moving from this area within ourselves to deeper energy centers so that we can actually communicate, even through a YouTube video. We can communicate together through other means. Solar plexus, so we use the same notion, the same astrological energy, the same principle. I name it again, I repeat it because I'm trying to name it and work with at another level. And while we do that, what is excellent and wonderful is that those luminous beings, and we just named it, we usually connect through them more through those centers than our mind. If we try to connect with spiritual being with our mind or intellect, very often, it doesn't work very well. It's not very efficient right now. So someday it will be for us humans, not now. For the moment, it goes there. So when we communicate on a deeper level, so for example, when I repeat myself, it's exactly for that. It's a wish to exchange on the same energy, the same topic, but this time deeper. We don't have to think about it and understanding the point anymore because we get the point. We did it already. So we can go deeper. And then the exchange is more subtle and we receive way more messages from it. And messages that are way deeper than just the words I mentioned, which are not that great. I mean, they're fine. There's a real idea behind it and it's been worked on. And it's also a message itself that I personally received and worked on and prepared. Yes, but there's more. And this more is, let's say, in your hands, and it's in your, let's say, solar plexus and all those centers. Basically, it's within yourself. So that's the idea behind the repetitions. Just so you know. I'm sharing this because it's precious. I'm not trying to justify myself anyway. People that don't like repetition, very often it's people that are not, they don't dive within that much. Very often they're not used to those levels so much. They're trained, and we are all trained so hard at school at not going deep within, staying in the mental level, mathematics, all those things that we learn at school, and we're trained to stay on this very thin part of ourselves in our mind only, and this Jupiter and Aries energy is there and we have to deal with it all the time. And people that are more creative and sensitive very often have a hard time, not all the time, but often, because it's demanded that we remain that very thin part of ourselves. It's not very rich. Same goes for children. Now, the way to educate children, very often, they have to be busy at all time. They don't get bored, they don't do bad things, they won't hurt themselves. So they need occupation at all time. And this is now seen as, the best way to deal with children is to occupy them all the time. But very often we're pushing to them this Jupiter and Aries and this level of connection to those other energy centers. They don't get so much. They don't get it so much. Someday we'll get back to this. For example, the child is not happy, something, we want to have the child busy so it's not disturbing. Well, TV is there for this. So we use the TV. But what is the TV? It's an intelligence that goes in the mind and is occupying ourselves. It's again right there, same energy. Being responsible of diving within is something else. And it is the gift of this winter solstice. So that's why I'm sharing all those examples, to make this as conscious as possible and so that we become all slowly, step by step, more and more conscious of this reality, of this part of ourselves. And it is asked from us to be more responsible, step by step, but clearly the astrological aspects are clearly mentioning this. So thank you very much for listening. And please, of course, share as much as you can. Channel is young, there's not so much views and all this. And of course, you know my accent. It's a French-Canadian accent. So I'm working in astrology in French usually. And I'm doing it in English now. Um, please share as much as possible to make this channel alive and make it live long. So thank you very much for all your attention and appreciation, and see you another time for another astrology video.